Landing craft, dropships, troop transports, or whatever you want to call them, are one of the most important types of ship in a galactic army, local security force, or other military organization. You can have all the star destroyers in the galaxy, but it won't matter if you don't have a way to move your troops from orbit to the ground or move them from place to place when they get there. So today we're going to look at some of the best. I'm Joey from Radio Free Coruscant, and these are the best troop transports in Star Wars. Mobile tac-pod. The first lander we're going to take a look at is the Preox-Morlana RK-392 Mobile tac-pod. This was a tiny troop transport capable of carrying about 6 Pre-Mor enforcement officers to a planet's surface from a BTY-180 personnel carrier. It was around 9.8 meters long by 10 meters wide and 4 meters tall by my estimation, making it a very good choice for organizations that need to operate in tight spaces, like local police forces and corporate private security troopers. Its wings folded vertically on landing, further reducing its footprint to about 3 meters wide. Unfortunately, we don't know any of its other stats yet, but I would guess its max speed to be 500 to 600 kilometers per hour, and its price to be about 20 to 25,000 credits. As you can see, the tac-pod's shape was undoubtedly inspired by the LAAT. While we don't know if it was available for sale to other security forces outside Pre-Mor, I think it likely was. With a marketable name like Mobile tac-pod and a form almost identical to a scaled-down version of a legendary Grand Army of the Republic vehicle, it's pretty safe to say the sale of these was probably a significant source of revenue for Pre-Mor. The tac-pod wasn't nearly as capable a gunship as the LAAT, but with 2 laser turrets and 2 fixed lasers, it was still capable of providing aerial support for the troops it carried. At least as long as they don't get complacent and allow the civilians they're oppressing to chain it down without them noticing. Imperial troop transport. For something a little bit bigger, the Ubrikian Industries Imperial troop transport can be an excellent choice. While it was only available to Imperial troops while the Empire was in power, surplus ITTs were probably quite popular after the Empire fell, at least any that didn't fall into the hands of Imperial remnants anyway. The ITT measured 14 meters long by 8.2 meters wide and 3.9 tall. It required at least 1 pilot and could apparently carry 36 troopers. It was armed with 2 twin laser cannons to clear landing sites, though it wasn't fast or maneuverable enough to provide support to troops on the ground like the tac-pod or LAAT. Like the tac-pod, its known stats are limited, but we can guess its top speed to likely be 100 to 500 kilometers per hour, and its cost to be 25 to 50,000 credits. The ITT appears to be quite heavily armored, potentially making it a good option for inserting troops into hostile situations. The Empire had numerous troop transport models at its disposal, such as the LAAT-LE and the K-79S80, so the ITT's niche could be situations where heavy resistance is expected. The 2 situations where we see them used on screen are sending troops to arrest a Jedi and to fight 2 Mandalorians, so this seems plausible to me. Given its relatively small size, it likely isn't as durable as, say, a Sentinel shuttle, but in my view the Sentinel is for large-scale deployments while the ITT is for deploying 1 or 2 squads at a time. By the way, in case you're wondering why I'm not including things like the Sentinel, or even bigger ships like the C-9979 or the Acclimator, it's because this list is for ships that fill the role of a helicopter or landing boat in real life. I felt like talking about small-scale troop transports this week, but large-scale ones could definitely be a topic for a future video. Anyway, the ITT also had a prison transport variant with an extended passenger cabin, tiny windows, and seating and shackles for prisoners. This suggests to me that the ITT would probably be very good for a lot of applications. Its rugged utilitarian design could be useful for various industrial applications, for example. I've always imagined them being useful in a foundry, with a hole cut in the roof for a molten slag bucket that can be drained into the appropriate location through the boarding ramp, with the pilot protected from the heat in the armored cupola. I also think it would be great for things like mining, either carrying workers into and out of an open pit mine, or possibly being retrofitted to haul ore or other materials. This may not be the most useful troop transport on this list as a troop transport, but it's certainly the most versatile outside of that. Let me know in the comments what else you think the ITT could be good for. It seems like there could be a lot of possibilities for it. Armored Assault Lander. Several decades after the creation of the ITT, Sinar Jamis Army Systems created its successor, the AAL 1971/9.1 Troop Transport, for the First Order. It could only carry 20 soldiers to the ITT's 36, but it traded the troop capacity for larger, more powerful engines that could propel it up to 900 km per hour, and room for 2 tread speeders or similarly sized bikes. It measured 17.83 meters long by about 6 meters wide and 5.4 meters tall. It required one pilot, who sat in a rather precarious-looking pod that gave them a comprehensive view of the surrounding area. It also had an anti-personnel laser cannon turret on the roof that could be operated by a gunner through a hatch for greater visibility, or by a trooper inside the craft for greater protection. Other improvements over the ITT included greater maneuverability thanks to electromagnetic thrust vectoring fins, excellent sensors, bright headlights, and an even brighter spotlight to dazzle enemies, and crucially, a forward deflector shield to protect debarking troops. Its hull also had advanced armor containing voids of inert gas to reduce the impact of blaster hits. Landing procedures were also refined from the time of the ITT. Typically, an AAL would make a hard landing to get boots on the ground as quickly as possible. 2 troopers with FWMB-10 repeating blasters would exit first and provide covering fire for the remaining troops, while the pilot would scan the area and identify threats for them to eliminate. If the landing took place at night, the spotlight would be used to highlight and blind them while the troops established a perimeter. This landing procedure was so efficient that an AAL's troops could begin combat operations in as little as 30 seconds after touching down, and the AAL could evacuate the area to safety if necessary. Despite its similarity to the ITT, I'm not sure that the AAL would be as useful outside of warfare as the ITT would be. I think its technological advancements might make it too expensive and overcomplicated on the second-hand market. Though if that isn't the case, it would certainly be useful for any orbital or atmospheric hauling applications where comfort is not a priority. LAAT LE. Perhaps my personal favorite troop carrier on this list is the Santh Corporation / Rothana Heavy Engineering LAAT LE, or Low Altitude Assault Transport Law Enforcement. This is potentially too much of a multi-purpose craft for my own arbitrary list rules, and is officially classed as an atmospheric gunship, but it still fits the troop lander niche too. The LAAT LE was designed for the Coruscant police force to patrol the Coruscant underworld and deliver officers wherever they were needed. It was essentially a more compact and practical version of the LAAT-I used by the Grand Army of the Republic. It featured a massive windscreen for exceptional pilot visibility, 2 small solar panels on the roof and 2 large folding solar panel wings on the sides, numerous weapons, and a powerful spotlight for tracking fugitives. After the Clone Wars, use of the LAAT LE became a lot more widespread. They were adopted by the Empire to enforce Imperial rule on planets all across the galaxy, and as support craft for some Star Destroyers. They were used as troop landers for Star Destroyers without ITTs or Sentinels assigned to them, and as general utility craft to assist with freighter docking operations and the like. Later on, the New Republic also used LEs for police actions, but at a much smaller scale than the Empire had. There were actually a lot of subtly different versions of the LE. I'll save the details for a future video all about it, but some models had slightly different weapons loadouts, interior configurations, and exterior festoonments. One model had armored wing panels and no rear fins, while another had a smooth round windshield instead of the TIE Fighter-style spoked version. I'd say there was an LAAT LE for every occasion, but they were basically all the same thing. The LAAT LE measured 11.48 meters long by 5.76 meters wide and 5.43 tall. It was armed with 2 laser cannon turrets and usually a tail cannon and 2 missile launchers. It was flown by 1 pilot and 1 gunner, and could carry 6 to 10 passengers. Its top speed was unknown, but probably 500 to 600 kilometers per hour, and it cost 62,000 credits. LAAT-I. And finally, perhaps the greatest troop lander of all time was the Rothana Heavy Engineering Low Altitude Assault Transport Infantry, or LAAT-I, or LAAT. This was the primary troop transport of the Republic during the Clone Wars, and was also used by the Empire for several years before being retired in favor of the cheaper and smaller LAAT LE. Like the LE, there were several variants of the LAAT-I, one open-sided version only suitable for atmospheric flight, a better sealed version that could be launched from a ship in orbit, and one called the Space Gunship that was capable of full spaceflight. LAATs were used to deploy clone troopers to battle, support troops on the ground with its overwhelming firepower, and other police and combat operations. It was one of the most effective and useful vehicles in the Grand Army of the Republic, and was used to great effect by the Republic, the Empire, the Rebellion, the Partisans, and many more for years after the end of the war. The LAAT-I measured 17.69 meters long by 17 meters wide and 9.94 tall. It was crewed by 1 pilot, 1 co-pilot and gunner, and 2 optional turret gunners. All LAAT-Is were armed with 3 anti-personnel turrets and 2 mass driver missile launchers or 2 EP-750X EMP missile launchers, and they could optionally be armed with 4 composite beam pinpoint laser turrets and 8 air-to-air rockets. The LAAT could carry a platoon of 30 clone troopers, as well as 4 speeder bikes or similarly sized cargo. It had a top speed of 620 kilometers per hour, and cost 85,000 credits. And those are my picks for the best troop transports in Star Wars. I'd love to know which of these you'd most like to be brought into battle in, and which you'd prefer to fly. I think either of the LAATs would be the best to pilot, but the AAL seems the safest for its passengers. But let me know what your choice would be, and what other craft you think I missed. I left out any that were equipped with a hyperdrive or were larger than 1 platoon of troopers. Finally, like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and I will see you next week. RFC, out.